What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Brian Frizzell. Today we are filming in the historic 18th and Vine Jazz District, the Lincoln Building, home of Cascade Media Group. You see them every day. Perhaps you drive past them on your way to work. They claim to help you out if you're in a jam and you need extra cash, quick extra cash, but at what price and at what cost? And why are there 4 or 5 of them within walking distance of each other, within a mile? Payday loan companies. Joining me today to talk about her company's role to establish legislation against payday loan companies that practice predatory lending is Ms. Molly Flemming Pierre, who is Policy Director of Communities Creating Opportunities. Thank you for joining us here
Thank
today.
you for having me on. I'm looking forward.
I know you're going to talk to us a little bit about payday loan and other work that your community organization is doing. First off, I'd like to say I saw you, Ms. Flemming Pierre, in the documentary We Are Superman, the transformation of 31st and Truce, where you talked about the effect that payday loan institutions has had on that particular area. What kind of feedback have you gotten since you taped that segment and it has subsequently aired?
Yeah, Kevin Bryce and Chris Cook, who directed and produced that film, did a fantastic job, I think, really capturing the spirit of that neighborhood and really the community at 31st and Truce, but also the real woundedness I think a lot of people in Kansas City feel about the Truce dividing line, and kind of put words to a pain that people have had for a really long time. So I think that a lot of folks have been really moved by the film, and I feel really honored to have had a role in it. It's been funny how many folks have recognized me from that film, and I was at Truce Fest last year buying a t-shirt from a gentleman who was selling shirts that had a decal with the Truce Avenue signpost on it. And he recognized me and just gave me the biggest hug. And then he started pointing me out as the lady from the film, and people just started hugging me all around Truce Fest. So
I can only imagine.
I think that the film, the issue of payday lending made a lot of people angry, but I think more generally the film and the conversation about a divided city really struck a chord with people. And it's been a long time coming that we had something that spoke to that for so many.
And I know you stepped on a lot of toes. You seem to have told the truth. At the end of the documentary, the producers handed out capes to some of the subjects who spoke so eloquently during the film. And the message seemed to be, we are our own Supermans. We have the power to take back our own communities. What did that statement mean to you?
Especially as a person who works in community organizing, we believe that one of the things we actually say is the first revolution is internal, that people can be their own liberators, and that the kind of lasting change communities like ours need entirely require that we don't wait around for some other superhero to swoop in and save us, that everything we need is right here. And we need to chip away at the barriers that are keeping us from being able to express that, and all of the folks who are trying to beat down our communities, but everything we need is right here. And so I think the message to take from that film isn't that I'm Superman or Father David's Superman, but that we truly all, if we step into our greatest gifts, can be exactly what our communities need.
Step into our greatest gifts, that we're not being lulled to sleep by this Hollywood fantasy of Superman, and that we actually take that metaphor and apply it to ourselves. I want to focus in specifically on payday loans for the next 5 minutes or so. I have some statistics that I would like to read and have you weigh in on, if that's okay. Payday loan statistics in the U.S., 12 million people borrow nearly $50 billion a year through payday loans. The rates charged on payday loans can be up to 35 times those charged on credit card loans and 80 times the rate charged on home mortgages and auto loans. Most borrowers owe payday lenders for 5 months out of the year and typically end up paying $800 for a $300 loan. And payday loan stores tend to aggregate in areas with higher rates of poverty. Would you mind giving us your feedback on those comments?
Yeah, the payday lending industry is a poverty industry. It preys off of people in poverty, and it makes huge money when regular people are doing worse. And so the way that plays out in Kansas City is that every single year, $26 million is drained from our family bank accounts in fees alone. That's just going to the debt to pay off a payday loan. And just fees, $26 million a year. And in Missouri, people are being charged an average of 455% interest on a payday loan. Now compare that to a high-cost credit card. A really high-cost credit card might charge 36%. And that would be considered a subprime credit card. 455% is being charged on average in our communities here in Kansas City. And so the average person who takes out a payday loan is not able to repay that product in the 2 weeks that's posted, that's advertised. The average person who doesn't have $500 today doesn't have $560 or $600 in 2 weeks. And so almost everyone who takes out a payday loan ends up paying twice the original loan amount in fees before they actually get out of this debt trap. Because at the end of 2 weeks, they have to pay a new fee to keep the loan current. And 2 more weeks pass and they pay a new fee to keep the loan current. Yeah, a lot of times we call it churning, that the industry is churning a borrower through the debt trap over and over and over again to maximize how much they can drain from that person.
Wow, I like that churning, that metaphor. What type of effects, long-term effects, do payday loan institutions have on the community?
You know, it's terrible that the proliferation of payday lending is really one side of a two-sided coin, and that we don't have banks in our communities. This isn't just that payday lenders are taking over our communities and charging exorbitant interest. We don't have banking institutions offering meaningful opportunities for people to build credit. So in the short term, payday lenders drain so much income that families cannot make it from paycheck to paycheck, and the lights go out. Kids don't have the things they need. It can just absolutely devastate family finances. But in the long term, payday lenders don't allow people to build credit. So even if somebody pays off their loan or gets a new loan every 2 weeks and keeps the loan current, it's not contributing to a positive credit history. So a lot of people stuck in the debt trap are not building the credit they need to have meaningful alternatives in the future, even if they're always current on their loans. And that means we're really creating 2 tiers of a financial market, one for middle class and upper middle class people, and one for the working poor and those who are living in poverty. And it's almost impossible. That barrier gets thicker and thicker every year that payday lenders keep draining our communities. So the ability to step out of a poverty trap and build meaningful wealth is almost impossible when we have this type of predation in our communities.
Contrary to what some of these companies advertise, and we are a commercial-dominated society. So I'd like to read to you briefly an advertisement that I pulled off of one of the payday loan companies that will remain anonymous. It was a great experience. Such and such a place has excellent customer service. I would definitely get another loan from here, or recommend my friends to get one. Do you have any positive payday loan stories?
You know, a lot of times a person just coming out of a payday lending shop with $500 in their pocket they didn't have before may say something positive about getting that loan, right?
I'm happy. I have $500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're nice to you there. The clerks know your name. They're friendly. They ask about your kids. And, you know, it's a lot of good people working there, many of whom make so little money they get payday loans themselves to sustain their incomes. But in that immediacy, that instant gratification beyond the stress of not knowing how I'm going to pay my bills with this income that doesn't stretch across, folks may say good things about payday loans. But it's then 2 weeks later when the loan comes due, and 2 weeks after that, and 2 weeks after that, that the cumulative burden that these products cause in our communities is almost overwhelming. There's actually a great documentary that folks can watch on YouTube that Tyler Perry helped put together called Spent. So if you just go to YouTube and search for Spent, it's about 50 minutes long, and it follows 4 families through the getting the quick cash that they need to get to the next paycheck, but how that adds up over time. And I think it tells a really truthful story about that quick high and the really, really hard pain that people hit later when those loans come due.
Now, your particular organization, Communities Creating Opportunities, has worked in the past to, or are you still working to establish legislation that would regulate some of the more harmful payday loan practices? Can you give us a current update status?
Yeah, you know, what's really difficult to hear is that Missouri has some of the loosest payday laws in the entire country. And part of the reason is we are the only state in the country that has no limits on campaign contributions and no limits on lobbying. And that means that the payday lending lobby and the payday industry's campaign contributions are some of the most large volume dollars that are flowing through Jefferson City. So it's made meaningful reform very, very difficult through our legislature, but there are hundreds of thousands of people across the state who are hungry for strong interest rate caps that eliminate triple digit interest. So a strong cap of 36% APR, annual percentage, that's actually the cap on loans to all members of the military across the nation. That Congress passed a law that said you can't loan more than 36% to members of the military, that it's actually an issue of national security that our soldiers are being targeted by predatory lenders. And so we're seeking, we think if 36% is good enough for members of our military, that's something that should apply to all of our families. And so we're trying to pass that kind of a comprehensive cap here in Missouri. I know, unfortunately, our legislature has been heavily influenced by the payday lending industry, and the only legislation they passed in 2014 session was a law that would cap payday loan interest rates at 912%, which is
long way to
ridiculous.
go. Yeah.
And I mean, that's not going to affect anyone's lives. So, thankfully, Governor Nixon called a spade and said this is sham payday lending reform and vetoed it. So that we're very clear with the legislature they haven't done their jobs yet and they need to get back to work.
What can we do to help, or are we still collecting signatures?
So we're not gathering signatures right now for a ballot initiative, but it's really, really important that our legislators hear from us how much meaningful payday reform is important. We're also at an exciting time right now in terms of the national reform movement. About 4 years ago, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created, called the CFPB, to regulate consumer products like credit cards and mortgages and payday loans. And we think over the next few months, 6-8 months, they may pass some meaningful rules that really regulate the industry nationally. So it's also important that our members of Congress, like Senator McCaskill and Senator Blunt and Representative Cleaver, all hear from us that payday lending needs to be reformed and that these predatory practices are just unconscionable. Because our Congress will have a huge say in making sure that these rules are actually enacted.
Now, on a one-on-one basis, if you have a family member, if you have a friend who is in a crunch and has the excuse that this is the only method that I need this payday loan, and you know that they won't be able to pay it back in the long run, what kind of alternative can you suggest to that person?
Yeah, well, so there's a few great organizations operating here in Kansas City that actually offer some alternative products. So Next Step KC is one, and often you can be referred by a caseworker or actually by your clergy leader sometimes as a member of Next Step KC. So there are some great alternative products that are operating in the community, but another really important thing is how are we thinking with folks about shifting finances to actually reduce what the bills are that come in every single month. It's one thing to need a loan in an emergency, and then groups like Next Step KC can be really helpful. But if every single month a family is consistently falling short on the gap between how much money they make and what their expenses are, we've got to figure out a better, more sustainable way to fill that gap. Because that family doesn't need a loan, that family needs more income. And that's actually why the movement to raise wages and the movement to ensure the rights of workers are being upheld and that workers are getting the hours that they need is just as important as the movement to cap interest rates on payday loans. Because every single month, income falling short of expenses, that need can't be met by a loan of any kind. That needs to be met by having a greater income or, if possible, reducing expenses where you can.
And you have 3, 4, 5 within the same block, within walking distance of each other, certainly aren't the higher society models in our community.
Well, and they actually can have a devastating impact on neighborhoods too. So when you think about the things that can contribute to neighborhood blight, sometimes it is those 3, 4, 5 payday lenders all in a community, all in a row that can be, we don't see those in the wealthier parts of town, right? And that definitely can have a devastating impact on a really strong neighborhood.
Now, Ms. Flemming Pierre, I have focused solely on payday loan institutions. Can you tell me what else you're working on at Communities Creating Opportunities currently?
Yeah. So, we've been working on the payday lending issue since 1998, actually. And part of the reason that we've stuck with this for as long as we have is just because of how immoral this product is and how much it harms our communities. But the longer we've been working to cap interest rates, the more clear it is that this is part of a much larger cycle of poverty and poverty industries that are really preying upon people who are working really hard in our communities and are struggling to make ends meet. And so a lot of the people who go get payday loans don't actually need a loan at all. They need a better job, or a job that's paying them what they're worth. If a person is working full time, they should not be living in poverty. So we've been working really closely with a lot of the low-wage worker movements and thinking about what are the types of policies like raising wages and ensuring that folks have fair hours. A lot of people are told to be on call for 40 hours a week at a low-wage job, but they only receive 20 hours. So that makes it almost impossible to schedule childcare, to, take classes and go back to school if you are always on call to a low-wage job, and then you're not even getting the hours you need. So there's a lot of ways in which our workplaces can really be reformed and can be better actors to support people in our community. So we call kind of that package of work that we do to help improve the financial security of our families, our campaign for economic dignity. And we're very much hoping to not only pass great policies that help lift up these families, but bring our low-wage workers more fully into public life as voters and as active community participants.
And will you be out communicating your message to the masses this fall?
Yeah, so we are launching a Dignity Votes campaign where we're trying to make sure that 15,000 voters, who are the kind of voters that a lot of other folks don't talk to, low-wage workers, people who don't vote very often, get out to the polls and make their voices heard in November, and make sure that everyone knows their voices have been heard so we can get these kind of economic dignity policies passed.
And voting is where it starts, truly. Ms. Molly Flemming Pierre, we thank you for joining us here today. She is the Policy Director at Communities Creating Opportunities. How can they reach you?
Our website is cco.org, and you can email me at molly@cco.org.
I'm your host, Glenn Brian Frizzell. Check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. And remember, the sky is truly the limit. Aim high. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, at the very least, you would have landed among the stars. Take care until next time.
What's up, Kansas City? We are Cascade Media Group.
CMG is calling all small businesses, organizations, solicitors of products or services that would like to reach their KC Metro viewers and would like our help.
We produce commercials, promote, advertise, and film events. Not to mention display company banners, including a link to your website on either of our sites.
That's whatsupkansascity.net, the premier outlet for Kansas City.
Or CascadeSports.tv, home of the student athletes.
If you're interested, contact CMG at 816-389-0259.
Or email us at mgcascademediagroup@hotmail.com.
And remember, it pays to advertise.